One of the most important concepts in regards to Second Life architecture is spatial interaction. Since the world of Second Life is largely visual, avatar orientation and aesthetics play a major role in the designing of a piece of architecture. Let's say, for instance, you are creating a small business to sell lighting equipment. You would want to utilize space that best exemplifies the possibility of selling lights. Therefore, you may look into a very transparent design so that the product can be seen from a distance. It is important to display products and services in such a way that it reflects the concepts behind the product itself. There are countless examples of work in Second Life that is made to sell products, yet the building has nothing to do with the products. Let's stop for a moment to think about that. Several corporate-style buildings are utilized in Second Life in order to show that the building is for commercial use. So that would make me come to the conclusion that many business designs in Second Life take ideas of the real corporate world back into their own business. Yet is the boxy design the best idea when selling playful avatar expressions? Perhaps for some, but I am willing to bet that it is not for many. Since anyone in Second Life can teleport to your business in an instant, holding an individual in your space is not easy. If someone is looking for avatar expressions, most find what they need in a store and move on. And for most business owners, getting profit is what it's all about. But profit is lost in the realm of losing your customers' interests. That being said, the same concepts can be applied to other types of designs in Second Life. Do not be afraid to go against the grain of what most would consider to be a corporate building or a residence. Orienting avatars is a more important concept, so take that into consideration. Avatar orientation is not an easy concept, but try experimenting a bit with your design, and do not be afraid to keep trying new designs and getting feedback from others. I want to quickly touch on an important concept in Second Life architecture, which is the manipulation of prims. Prims are the basis for all architecture in Second Life. They are basic geometries molded, sculpted, and combined together to provide built form and avatar orientation. They are just as, and in many ways, as more important in Second Life than the landscape itself. Yet this is not a building tutorial. Second Life has many resources devoted to the support of questions that arise from building concerns, and this course and the school is about architecture, not construction. Since prims are a bit of a gray area in regards to that, we will focus on the designing of individual and grouped prims, the foundations of Second Life architecture. Prim manipulation and consequently texture application are what make building in Second Life possible. Remember that several concepts do not need to exist in Second Life, such as structure and foundation. These important architectural concepts become symbolic. Therefore, your energies as a designer can be focused elsewhere. Really push the limit when using and combining prims. Some of the best designs in Second Life are those that really experimented with prims and tried to change the way we think about using visual geometries to create architecture. Since it relates a great deal to prims, textures is our next topic to touch on. I hope that most know that textures are images applied to prims, and I won't have to get into any more detail in that explanation. But textures are an interesting aspect of Second Life architecture. They act as implied materials and can mimic any facet of real-world material to varying degrees. What I find interesting in Second Life is Avatar's abilities to take materials from the real world and put them in awkward situations. I like to use brick as an example of what not to do. Brick in the real world is a sturdy material that is strong and has fairly good heating or cooling retention. Brick is not structural in Second Life and has no retention rates. Therefore, those that apply it to buildings either love the pattern of brick or they are relying on preconceived notions of building strategies. Textures, like brick, are to be used with precaution in Second Life. Most avatars are not offended by brick, but it is not a captivating texture. Using textures in an innovative fashion is what will really set apart your design from others. The application, therefore, becomes more important than the actual texture itself. Let's go back to brick for just a moment. What if the brick were shaped, skewed, altered, and radically applied? Let's say, for example, we take the standard brick template and stretch it. And we can also change the color on it as well. With two simple alterations, the texture acts very differently. Then we can apply it in a new manner, and that texture can begin to speak volumes about the architecture. Textures can be created in any image editing software, and remember to really think about your textures before applying them into your architecture. Jumping a bit from the discussion, I want to quickly talk about a very overlooked aspect to creating in Second Life. This overlooked issue is the avatar's perception of the architecture, or camera angle. In the real world, all live architecture is viewed through eyes. In Second Life, it is clear that many don't use the first-person perspective. What's interesting is that the architecture can be conceived completely different from an angle, and therefore different emotions are conjured in different ways. Those who have been in Second Life for some time can attest to the difficulty in some spaces to get their view correctly without staring at a zoomed-in wall. In this scenario, you want to organize your egress or movement spaces away from exterior walls, and keep your ceiling heights fairly high. Another solution to this problem is to post the most beneficial viewing angle for avatars when they enter your space. It may drastically alter their perception of your design. Along with that suggestion, you may want to hinder avatars' ability to fly as well, if your architecture does not account for that perception. Be sure to experiment with your avatars, and the different angles that are created by moving around those certain spaces. These are some of the basic concepts that I wanted to cover in this basic course. Yet there is one issue that continues to plague the Second Life landscape with poorly crafted and underdeveloped structures. This issue is known as the box reality in Second Life. The box reality is the overwhelming number of structures in Second Life that resemble boxes or cubes. The issue can actually be broken up into two factions, one being the general four walls and a roof design, and the other being heavy mimicry of real-world housing structures. If you asked 100 people to grab a pencil and paper and tell them to draw a house, I bet I can guess what it would look like. This design is strongly evident to the unskilled minds of Second Life attempting to build a residence. It's not to say that many were just experimenting and learning the Second Life building tools, but they are all left on the landscape and create a bluntly spoken, ugly environment. For those with four walls and a roof structure on their land, I am also willing to bet that they have the most generic materials applied to them as well. Don't worry, it is not that you're a terrible person, your eyes have just not been open to the true potential of your land. In relation to these simple structures is the idea of taking the house that you live in and applying it to the landscape. I, for one, am sick of seeing residential structures that I can see on my daily drive. Let's remember that just because it looks like a residence does not mean it should. We all come to Second Life to see things and experience things we obviously can't get easily in the real world. So if we can move out of the box reality, I believe the landscape of Second Life will begin to reflect the creative minds that fill it. This leads me into my next topic, which is designing and catering for neighboring structures. During my year-long thesis project, I found that some of my neighbors changed their land about once a month. As frustrating as this is, one has to take neighboring structures into consideration. Second Life does not have zoning laws that prevent you from making a nightclub next to a library. This can create some awkward relations between land parcels. Therefore, since sim owners choose profitability over design, much like in the real world, we must work with our neighbors to enhance our own designs. Feel free to contact your neighbor, and if they are unresponsive, then you should design with their parcel into consideration. A beautiful sim is an occupied sim. As the landscape is always altering, so can your architecture. If your neighbors radically change their designs, spend an hour or two to adjust to their certain objects that have been adjusted. Remember that most landowners in Second Life are looking to create, live, and profit. Many will be interested to speak with their neighbors about their design.